The digital clock on my bedside nightstand flickered from 5:44 to 5:45 on Sunday morning when the phone on my mattress began vibrating violently against the sheets. I reached out through the dim twilight of our bedroom, expecting a job alert or an automated system warning. Instead, my father's caller ID flashed brightly across the screen. Before I could even press the answer icon, my thumb slipped on the glass, activating the speakerphone feature. A sharp, booming laugh erupted through the phone's small speakers, filling our quiet bedroom. "Wake up, Era," my father, Richard, yelled into the line, his tone dripping with triumphant mockery. "Your sister Sienna just won. Your husband Julian packed his bags and is officially living with her now." My mother, Helena, chimed in immediately from the background, her voice loud and sharp over the receiver. "Try not to embarrass yourself by calling him begging to come back, Era. You were always too rigid to hold down a good man like Julian, and Sienna finally showed him what a real supportive partner looks like." I sat completely still in the dark, my hand hovering over the phone screen. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I didn't offer a single word of defense. Instead, I looked to my left. Sitting directly beside me on the edge of the mattress, fully awake in his dark gray sweatpants, was my husband of 4 years, Julian. He wasn't packed. He wasn't at Sienna's apartment. He was right next to me, holding a cup of morning coffee, listening to every single word my parents were spitting into the speaker. "My name is Era Gates. I am 30 years old and I work as a senior financial auditor for a regional firm. For as long as I can remember, my younger sister, Sienna, who is 24, was treated as an untouchable favorite by my parents. Whatever Sienna wanted, my parents engineered a way for her to get it. When I bought my first modest townhouse through 6 years of strict savings, my parents demanded I let Sienna stay in the spare bedroom rent-free. When I built my career, they constantly asked me to funnel my extra income into Sienna's failed startup ventures. 4 years ago, back in 2022, I married Julian. Julian is 32 and works as a successful commercial architect. He is calm, grounded, and deeply devoted to our partnership. But to my family, Julian wasn't just my partner. He was a high-value asset they believed belonged in Sienna's hands. Over the past year, Sienna's envy grew increasingly transparent. She would show up at our house unannounced wearing expensive clothing she couldn't afford, making passive-aggressive remarks about my appearance, my career, and my marriage. My parents backed her up at every family gathering, constantly dropping subtle hints that Sienna was the more attractive, eligible daughter. Then came last night, Saturday night at 11:30 p.m. Sienna had sent a series of lengthy, desperate text messages directly to Julian's personal cell phone, accompanied by distorted screenshots. In those messages, Sienna claimed that I was secretly liquidating our joint savings accounts, hiding marital assets, and planning to abandon Julian for a fictitious coworker. She ended her midnight text barrage by telling Julian that he deserved a loyal woman, inviting him to come over to her downtown loft right away to start a new life together. Sienna had no idea how our marriage worked. The moment Julian received those messages on his desk, he walked straight into our living room, handed me his unlocked phone, and sat down beside me so we could read through them together. We spent an hour saving every message, downloading every attachment, and forwarding the entire chain to our family legal counsel. Sienna had evidently lied to my parents late last night, convincing them that Julian had accepted her offer and abandoned me. My parents were so eager to celebrate my public humiliation that they couldn't even wait until sunrise to call and rub it in my face. Now, at 5:45 on Sunday morning, my parents were still laughing into the speakerphone. "Are you silently crying over there, Era?" my mother teased, her voice sharp with satisfaction. "Don't say we didn't warn you. Sienna called us late last night and told us everything. She said Julian realized who the superior sister was. You should start packing up your things because you can't afford that house on your own single income." Julian set his coffee mug down on the wooden nightstand with a soft click. He leaned over toward my phone, brought his face close to the microphone, and spoke in a low, cold, steady voice. "You two really need to see what your favorite daughter actually sent me last night." The sudden sound of my husband's voice echoing through the line hit like an absolute shockwave. The loud laughter on the other end of the phone cut off instantly. The line plunged into complete, heavy silence. Julian," my father stammered after several seconds of dead air, his booming voice suddenly cracking with hesitation. Is that you? Why are you at Era's house?" "I am sitting in bed next to my wife, Richard," Julian replied, his voice completely unbothered, though sharp as steel. "Where else would I be?" My mother let out a small, panicked gasp in the background. But, Sienna told us, she said you left Era last night. She said you came over to her place. Sienna lied to you just like she lies to everyone else, Julian stated, reaching out to tap his own tablet screen which was linked to our home media system. I am sending a digital screen recording directly to both of your personal email accounts right now. It contains every text message, every audio note, and every midnight proposal Sienna sent to my phone while my wife and I were sitting together on our couch. I leaned in closer to the phone screen, my voice calm and collected. Check your inbox, Mom. Dad. Read what your golden daughter actually wrote. A few seconds passed over the speakerphone. I could hear the faint sound of my father unlocking his tablet in his kitchen, followed by the rustling of papers as he opened the notification. What is this? My father whispered, his voice trembling as he began reading the message logs out loud. My father's breath hitched over the line as he read through the digital transcript Julian had just sent. For nearly 30 seconds, neither of my parents spoke. The silence was so dense you could hear the faint ticking of the clock in their kitchen over the phone's speaker. Julian, Era is stealing your money and hiding accounts from you. My father read aloud, his voice dropping an octave with every word, stuttering over the sentences. You deserve someone who knows how to appreciate a real man. Come over tonight, leave your key on the counter, and let's start fresh together. My father stopped reading. A heavy paper fell onto his desk. Sienna written all of this? My mother whispered, her previous arrogant tone completely demolished. She told us you walked out on Era, Julian. She called us crying at 2 a.m, saying you were at her apartment right now. Sienna is a deeply manipulative liar, Julian stated plainly, not offering an ounce of sympathy. And the two of you were so blinded by your desire to see Era fail that you didn't even stop to ask for proof. You jumped out of bed at 5 a.m. just to celebrate your own daughter's heartbreak. Era. My mother tried to speak, her voice shaking violently. Era, sweetie, listen to me. Do not call me sweetie, Mom, I cut in, my voice icy, sharp, and steady. For 4 years, you and Dad have treated my marriage like a competition that Sienna was meant to win. You pushed her to disrespect my boundaries, you ignored her entitlement, and today you prove that you view my pain as family entertainment. Era, please, we were misinformed by your sister, my father bargained frantically, his voice filled with newfound panic. Sienna tricked us. We thought Julian had genuinely left you. We were reacting to what she told us. You weren't just reacting, Dad, I replied, looking directly at Julian as he opened his legal tablet. You called me laughing. You told me my sister won. You told me not to embarrass myself begging for my own husband back. You showed me exactly who you are. Julian leaned into the microphone, his tone shifting into absolute professional authority. Now, Richard, let's talk about business, Julian said smoothly. 3 months ago, as a personal favor to Era, I used my commercial credit line to underwrite a $120,000 corporate loan guarantee for your struggling manufacturing business. Without my signature, the bank would have called in your notes in May. My father's voice went completely pale. Julian, please, don't do this. As of 6 o'clock this morning, Julian continued, tapping a button on his tablet screen, my legal team has officially filed a formal revocation of that credit guarantee. The lender will notify your accounting department by 8:30 tomorrow morning. You will have 48 hours to post collateral for that loan, or your credit line will be frozen completely. No. Julian, you can't, my father screamed through the phone, pure terror lacing his voice. That will destroy my company. We don't have that kind of liquid capital. That business supports our entire household. Then I suggest you ask your favorite daughter, Sienna, to fund it, I said, stepping closer to the phone. Since she is the superior, successful daughter you love so much, I'm sure she can write you a check by noon tomorrow. Era, please, my mother begged, sobbing openly into the receiver now. We are your parents. You can't let Julian ruin your father's business over a misunderstanding. This was never a misunderstanding, Mom, I said with finality. This was a wake-up call. I am officially blocking both of your numbers, and as of today, neither of you exist to me or my husband. Before either of my parents could let out another desperate plea, I tapped the red end call button on my screen, severing the connection instantly. The silence that followed in our bedroom was absolute and peaceful. To make sure my family could never attempt a similar scheme again, Julian and I didn't stop with just cutting off the credit guarantee. Later that same Sunday afternoon, Julian met with our senior legal representatives at Vance Financial Center. We made sure that every single digital footprint Sienna had left, including the voicemail she had recorded, the manipulative email thread she had forwarded, and the fabricated financial spreadsheet she claimed I created, was compiled into a clean, indisputable legal dossier. My parents tried calling from 4 different secondary phone lines over the course of Sunday evening. When they realized their numbers were blocked, my mother sent 3 frantic emails to my professional auditor account. She went from apologizing hysterically to accusing me of heartlessness, begging me to persuade Julian to restore the $120,000 credit underwriting before the banks opened on Monday. I didn't open a single email. I forwarded every message directly to our attorney, who issued a formal cease and desist letter to both of my parents by 6 p.m. By 8:30 on Monday morning, the real consequences began. The regional commercial bank notified my father's corporate office that their primary loan guarantee was officially null and void due to the underwriter's revocation. My father, who had spent decades living far beyond his actual financial means while funding Sienna's extravagant lifestyle, had 0 liquid reserves to pledge as replacement collateral. The bank immediately froze his business accounts and initiated an emergency asset audit. Desperate to save his company from bankruptcy, my father was forced to execute a fire sale of his 2 secondary commercial properties. He sold them at 40% below market value just to gather enough cash to satisfy the lender's immediate margin call. The loss erased nearly half of his lifelong retirement net worth in a single day. Meanwhile, my mother, Helena, drove over to Sienna's downtown apartment in a blind rage late Monday afternoon. She finally realized that Sienna had manufactured the entire story about Julian leaving me just to cover up the fact that Julian had rejected her proposal. When my mother confronted Sienna in the lobby of her apartment building, demanding that she take responsibility and apologize to the family, Sienna showed her true colors. She screamed at my mother in front of her neighbors, calling our parents pathetic failures for relying on my husband's financial standing in the first place. Sienna claimed she owed no loyalty to people who couldn't protect their own financial assets. Within 48 hours, Sienna packed her bags, broke her lease, and moved out of state to avoid the social humiliation of her exposed lies. She blocked both my mother and father on all social media platforms the minute they stopped providing her with her monthly living allowance. Without my husband's backing and with their family business severely downsized, my parents had to make massive life adjustments. My father had to surrender his executive office and manage his downscaled firm from a rented desk space. My mother, who had not worked a day in 20 years, was forced to take a part-time position as a retail receptionist just to help cover their ongoing credit card balances and monthly utility bills. They tried one final time to reach out through my aunt 2 months later, claiming that family should forgive mistakes and that life was too short to hold grudges over money. I sent a simple 1-sentence reply through my aunt. "You didn't care about family when you called me laughing at 5 in the morning. You only care now because you lost your financial safety net." Since that day, my life with Julian has been quieter, stronger, and completely peaceful. Without the constant weight of my family's entitlement, toxicity, and subtle sabotage, we were able to focus entirely on our own future. We finalized the purchase of a beautiful 4-acre property outside the city, where we are building our home based on real trust, mutual respect, and unconditional support. Standing up to the people who raised you is never easy, but protecting your marriage and your mental peace from malicious envy will always be worth every single boundary you set. Before we wrap up, I want to share a crucial lesson from today's story. Blood relations should never be used as a shield to excuse cruelty, malicious envy, or favoritism. When family members view your happiness as a threat and actively root for your failure, setting firm, uncompromising boundaries isn't petty, it is an act of self-preservation. Era's story reminds us that true loyalty is proven through actions, not empty titles, and standing up for your peace of mind will always mean cutting off those who take pleasure in seeing you fall. Protect your family, protect your marriage, and never be afraid to walk away from people who demand your silence while actively seeking your ruin.